Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a very special day. It's the appearance day of Ramanujacharya. Just before Ram Navami, which is on Wednesday. So there are 4 sampradayas authorized. What does a sampradaya mean? These are the authorized disciplic succession coming from Krishna, and which are regarded to be the main ways by which one can connect with Krishna through guru-disciple relationship. So the 4 are the Brahma Sampadaya, Shri Sampadaya, Rudra Sampadaya, and the 4 Kumaras Sampadaya. They all originate from Krishna, who is Adi Guru, original Guru. And these 4 personalities are very powerful. So from Brahma Sampadaya, the main Acharya that came after Sankaracharya, all of these Acharyas have come after Sankaracharya. And they regarded to be the main teachers of these various Sampadayas. So Lord Brahma Sampadaya, there was Madhavacharya, and the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very much associated a lot more with Madhavacharya than anybody else in terms of philosophy. Although there are differences between the Gaudiya philosophy and the Madhavacharya's philosophy, still it's closely aligned. Then Sri Sampadaya is Ramanujacharya, and his is the birthday that we are celebrating today, his appearance day. So we'll talk a little bit about him. And then in the Rudra Sampadaya, we have Vishnu Swami. Vishnu Swami, very interesting personality. And then the 4 Kumaras, we have Nimbakacharya. There are quite subtle differences between the 4 of these Sampadayas. But if anybody is following in one of these Sampadayas, then the destination of that follower is ultimately the spiritual world. Where in the spiritual world, that's a different matter. But these 4 Sampadayas are considered to be the authorized Sampadayas in this age of Kali Yuga. Of course, we know there's many other Sampadayas, right? So are they all unauthorized? Well, we can only say that these 4 are the authorized ones. I don't think we can make any claim that no other Sampadaya is authorized. But we know from the scriptures that these 4 are the ones that are authorized. So better safe than sorry, should link through the gurus of one of these Sampadayas. And of course, the one that we favor. Pushti Marg is this one, is Nimbakacharya. That's the most famous in Gujarat, Pushti Marg. Vallabhacharya in Nathwar. Yeah. Any questions on this? Because it can be a little bit confusing. We, of course, favor this line here, Brahma Madhavacharya, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was a disciple of Ishwara Puri, who was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And that line came via Madhavacharya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself went to Udupi, where Madhavacharya had his base, and he had many debates with the sannyasis in that sampradaya. Okay, so we've done this a couple of times actually recently. the timeline of the appearance of the lordships and the main acharyas of the four sampradayas. So we know Krishna left roughly 5,000 years ago. And as soon as he left, Kali Yuga entered, almost. So it's like when the sun sets, darkness sets in. So Krishna left and darkness, Kali came in. 2,500 years ago, Lord Buddha arrived, and he came to stop the animal sacrifices that were taking place in the name of the Vedas. That was a lot of abuse going on. The Vedas allows animal sacrifice, but in a controlled religious way, so that the animal actually benefits from being sacrificed by attaining a human body. But what was happening was that the Vedas were being misused and people were killing animals to satisfy their tongues. So Lord Buddha came. That's no different from Lord Krishna. Or he was Saktavesh Avatar, empowered soul. And he stopped the animal sacrifices going on in the name of the Vedas. So he told the people to reject the Vedas, which they did, and the animal sacrifices stopped. And then 1,000 years later, about 500 AD, Shankaracharya came. Now, Shankaracharya is a very interesting personality. He is non-different from Lord Shiva. And he was instructed by the Lord, go and preach the Mayavadi philosophy that one can become one with God, re-establish the Vedas, but give the followers an incentive. Lord Shiva didn't want to do this, but he's a servant of Lord Krishna. So he did it even though he didn't want to. So he came and he preached that one can become one with God. And he re-established the Vedas again. So Buddha rejected the Vedas, Shankaracharya re-established the Vedas, but in a wrong way. And then the four Sampradaya heads appeared. Vishnu Swami was first, Rudra Sampradaya, Ramanujacharya was next. So that's his appearance we're talking about today. He appeared in roughly 1000 AD. I think it was 1017 AD. 5,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, yeah. Just over 1,004 years ago he appeared. I don't know if devotees remember, but about 4 years ago, there was quite a huge celebrations going on about of Ramanuja's 1,000th anniversary of his appearance. Then the four Kumaras came, headed by, the Nimbakacharya appeared in the four Kumara Sampradaya, and then Madhavacharya. So he's the most recent. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. And in many ways, he combined all the four Sampradaya. He took teachings from all four and he combined it all together. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has established a temple in Mayapur where all the four Sampradayas or the four gurus are established in that temple. So there's some reconciliation there between all four Sampradayas. And then, of course, Prabhupada came in 1896. Just a little idea of what are the main sort of differences, I suppose, or comparison between the four Sampradayas. So if we look at the Rudra Sampradaya, they worshipable deities, Krishna and Nrsimha. Four Kumaras is Krishna and also Radha. Nimbakacharyas, this is one of the few that has established Radharani's form into their Ishtadev, worshipable deities. Sri Sampradaya, which is what we're going to look at today, Ramanujacharya, mainly they worship Vishnu or Ram in the mood of awe and reverence, servant, or maybe even parental affection, but servant mainly. And Madhavacharya, his main Ishtadev was Vishnu. Udupi is Krishna, but in a mood of opulence and formal worship. And we've added the Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's line. And their main worship deity is Radha Krishna, Krishna. The philosophy is slightly different, all of them. If we just look at Sri Sampradaya, it's Vashishta Advaita, specified monism. So it's basically that we are one with God in quality, but not in quantity. That's essentially the Vashishta Advaita. These are all slightly different from each other. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's is very different. It is Achintya Bede Bede Tattva. It is inconceivable oneness and difference. So we are one with God, but we're different at the same time. And then what's the mood of these sampradayas? In the Rudra Sampradaya, they're friends, parents, conjugal love. Same for Kumaras. In the Sri Sampradaya, it's mainly servant. In the Brahma Sampradaya, mainly servant. But in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, there's essentially five types: neutral, servant, friendship, parental, conjugal. So, Ramanujacharya, 1017 he appeared. So 1004 years ago. His family belonged to the caste of Vadama Smarta Brahmins, who were formal Vedic scholars. So very high Brahminical culture. His parents, Keshavacharya and Bhudevi, they prayed to the Lord for a special soul who would glorify Sri Vishnu. And their prayers were answered. He was originally known as Lakshman. And in fact, that was also his name, Lakshman. He's the first expansion of the Lord appeared as Ramanuj. Anuj means younger brother. Yeah, very good. Ramanuja was married at the age of 16. His marriage is until he took sannyas. He took sannyas at about the age of 30. So he was married for 14 odd years. But soon after he got married, his father actually passed away, about 4 months after 4 months after his marriage. His father, and that was a big blow to the family because he was only 16, young. And the family then moved to Kanchipuram, which is a center of learning. And he became a student of Yadav Prakash. Now, Yadav Prakash is a bit of an interesting character. He had a school, but he was not a Vaishnav. He was Mayavadi. He was believing that God, one can become God. God does not have a form. That sort of mood. And anybody can become God. So although Ramanujacharya didn't agree with the philosophy of becoming one with God, he tolerated, he didn't leave the school. He continued to study under Yadav Prakash. And he was an excellent student. Of course, he didn't agree with the conclusions of the teacher. And one day, Ramanujacharya, he was actually massaging Yadav Prakash. And Yadav Prakash, he started to explain a verse which contained the words Kapyasam Pundarikam Evam Akshini. And Yadava Prakash used the interpretation of Sankaracharya, and he explained the verse in a really funny way, or not a funny way, or offensive way, actually. Kapi means monkey, asanam means ass. So he interpreted the verse. The verse, therefore, is interpreted to mean Lord Vishnu's lotus eyes are as red as a monkey's ass. Very offensive, actually. Now, Ramanuja cried at this interpretation. He didn't like this at all. And he challenged his guru, stating that this was not correct. And then, of course, his guru got a little upset. And he asked him, what do you mean? So Ramanuja explained, Kapyasam means a lotus which sits upon the water and flourishes by drinking. So the meaning of the verse is the lotus eyes of Vishnu are as beautiful as the red lotus which blossoms in the water. So that's a devotee interpretation. This is a demoniac interpretation. So you can tell Ramanujacharya is really amazing. Yadav Prakash was defeated by his disciple. He was so angry, he wanted to kill him. So they did plot to kill Ramanujacharya one time. I think I can't remember exactly how they were going to kill him, but they were going to take him to the forest and have him eaten up by tigers and things like that. Anyway, this plot failed because a very close associate of Ramanujacharya was his cousin, Govinda. He found out about the plot and he warned Ramanuja. In fact, he took him to the jungle and all that. And Govinda came back and told Yadav Prakash that Ramanujacharya has died. He's been eaten by tigers. So they were all happy. In the meantime, Ramanujacharya, he went back to his place, Kanchipuram, and he was studying. He just pretended nothing had happened. Eventually, Yadav Prakash and his disciples, they came back to Kanchipuram and they found out, oh, Ramanuja is still alive. So they also kept their mouth shut. They didn't want to get into trouble. And eventually, what happened was Ramanujacharya was such a highly regarded scholar, philosopher, and devotee of God that one time Yadav Prakash heard his pravachan and became completely convinced by Ramanujacharya. So Yadav Prakash, once was a teacher of Ramanujacharya. He surrendered to Ramanujacharya together with his disciples. So this is the quality of Ramanujacharya, very powerful preacher. His mother, he advised her, Ramanujacharya, to take Diksha from a non-Brahman disciple of Yamunacharya named Kanchipurna. Now, Yamunacharya was the Acharya of that time, very self-realized soul. And I think there was one occasion where Ramanujacharya and Yamunacharya, they did meet. They did meet one time. Anyway, Ramanujacharya was greatly inspired by this Kanchipurna. But his wife, Ramanujacharya's wife, considered Kanchipurna as a low-born Shudra. Now remember, Ramanujacharya was a Brahmin. Eventually, due to her behavior towards Kanchipurna, Ramanujacharya left home and took sannyas. Before this, Ramanujacharya, he went to meet Yamunacharya, the great guru at that time, but he just passed away. I think there was 2 sessions. One was he met him once briefly because Yamunacharya came to collect alms from his house. So he met him briefly at that time. But then Ramanujacharya went to meet him again, but this time he died, passed away. So then when Ramanujacharya saw him, there were 3 fingers on the right hand were closed. This was very unusual. So Ramanujacharya understood, and he made 3 vows to fulfill the order of Yamunacharya. He promised to teach the people in general the religion of surrender to Vishnu. And as he promised this, one of Yamunacharya's fingers relaxed. Second thing he vowed was to comment on the hymns of the Alvas. The Alvas are great poets. They are devotional poets. They've written so much poetry. And this is sung in the south of India, especially, south of Bharat. So then the second finger relaxed of Yamunacharya. And then finally, he promised to write a scholarly commentary on the Vedanta Sutras, expounding the principles of Vaishnavism, Sri Vaishnavism, as the ultimate truth of the Vedas. So with this, the third finger was relaxed as well. So in this way, a look of spiritual peace came over the lotus face of Ramanujacharya's divine master, Sri Yamunacharya, as if to say that he could now depart peacefully, knowing that his mission was in good hands. So this was a really amazing pastime that took place. Soon after taking sannyas, Ramanuja established his own monastery or ashram, where he began training disciples in the systematic Vaishnava interpretation of Vedanta, as well as in the path of devotion to Vishnu. He took many prominent disciples, including his former teacher, Yadav Prakash. Ramanuja, under the guidance of Mahapurna or Kannapurna, a prominent disciple of Yamunacharya, went to the great Goshtipurna and accepted initiation in the Vaishnava mantra. Now, Goshtipurna, he initially would not give him this mantra. He made him promise, don't share this mantra with anyone. I am giving you this mantra. It's a secret mantra. So don't give it away to anybody. It's very important, very powerful mantra. Does anybody know what that mantra is? Anybody like to have a guess? Anybody awake? I'm going to pick on somebody. Maitri Rishi, do you know the mantra?
No. Narayana.
Yeah, that's the what? Om Namo Narayanaya.
As a Telugu.
That's it. That's it. That's it. That's the one. That's the one. So what he did, Ramanujacharya realized the importance of the mantra, and others begged him for this. So he shared it with everybody. He actually went to the rooftop and he was shouting it out. Om Namo Narayanaya. Now, when Goshtipurna found out that this is what Ramanujacharya did, he became very angry. And he asked Ramanujacharya, why did you do this? I told you, this is a secret mantra. Now the potency is lost. So then Ramanuja explained that if this mantra can liberate everyone, then he is happy to go to hell for disobeying the order of the spiritual master. But let everybody else go to heaven or to the spiritual world. So this was his mood. And Goshtipurna understood the greatness of Ramanuja. This mantra was Om Namo Narayanaya. So Ramanujacharya, he preached far and wide in South Bharat. He established many centers of Vedanta. He had thousands of disciples, 700 sannyasis. It's a lot of sannyasis. And he had 12,000 celibate students, brahmacharis. But he also had many householders who were very advanced in devotion. And then there's one example. The sannyasis and the brahmacharis, they used to be very proud of themselves, thinking they were highly elevated. One time, Ramanujacharya, he got one of the disciples to mix up the gamchas and the kopins. And in the morning, there was one big hoo-ha because the gamchas and kopins were all mixed up. So the sannyasis and the brahmacharis were fighting with each other. This is mine, this is mine, this is yours, this is... And it was pandemonium. No Mangalarti took place that day. And then Ramanujacharya said, look, you guys are so attached just to your kopins and your gamchas. Go and steal something from this householder. His name was Dhanur Das. So one night, one of the sannyasis or brahmachari, he went in to the householder's home. Tanurdas wasn't there. His wife was there. She was sleeping. So this brahmachari, he took the earring from one of the ears of the wife, and she knew that he was there. She turned herself around so that the brahmachari could take the other earring. But he ran off, thinking he'd woken her up. So then Dhanudas came home, and his wife told him, this is what happened. We were blessed today. Brahmachari came and he stole one earring. And I turned around so that he could take the other earring as well. And Dhanudas became very angry with his wife, said, don't you think you're the controller? Don't you know Ram is the supreme controller? Why did you think that you had to turn around for him to take, for the brahmachari to take the other earring from your ears? In this way, he showed himself to, the householders showed themselves as completely renounced, even though they had so many possessions. Yet they were not attached to those possessions. Whereas Ramanujacharya showed that the sannyasis and the brahmacharis were very attached to the very little they had, but they were so attached to it. So this is a good example for us as well. We're all grahasthas. So it doesn't mean that we are necessarily in a disadvantaged position, because even as householders, one can be renounced and be as good as the sannyasis and the brahmacharis. And then there was another pastime which took place with Ramanujacharya. He traveled a lot. He would preach, he would set the standards for worship according to the Vedas. And wherever he went, he improved the level of worship. He went to Jagannath Puri and he saw that the worship standard was appalling. The aarti wouldn't be done on time. It would be all sorts of things being offered. And there was no consistency in the level of worship that was being offered to Jagannath. So Ramanujacharya, he called a meeting. He was highly acclaimed guru, very popular, very famous. So he called a meeting of all the pujaris and the king. And everybody was a little bit scared. What is he going to do? In the night, Ramanujacharya was transported by some mystic power of the Lord, hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And Ramanujacharya understood it was not my place to tell the servants of Jagannath that they should improve their standard of worship. Jagannath indicated to him that he was happy with the level of worship that was being offered to him by the pandas in Jagannath Puri. So that's a really interesting relationship between Jagannath and Ramanujacharya. And Ramanujacharya didn't make the attempt to go back to Jagannath Puri. So he lived for 100 years. Some commentators say he lived for 125 years, but he had a long life. Okay. So like we were saying earlier, Gauranga, he took two teachings from each of the sampradayas. From the Sri Sampradaya, he took Ramanujacharya Sampradaya, he took unalloyed bhakti, free from karma and gyan, to be a very important point. So pure bhakti and service to the Vaishnavas. From the Brahma Sampradaya, Madhvacharyas, he took the complete defeat of Mayavad philosophy and worship of Krishna. From the Rudra Sampradaya, Vishnu Swamis, total dependence on Krishna and spontaneous bhakti. Spontaneous bhakti basically means that we worship from our hearts. Yes, we have rules and regulations. We stick to those as far as possible. But ultimately, one must try to develop this spontaneous love for Krishna, that we will serve him according to our um, capacity, capability, desires. And from the four Kumara Sampradaya, Nimbakacharyas, exclusive shelter of Radha and the exalted love of gopis for Krishna. So these are things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu combined the four Sampradayas together. Oops, what's this? Okay. Anybody else, anything to share about Ramanujacharya? There's probably a lot more that I haven't gone through. I was meaning to read about Ramanujacharya, but never got a chance. This is one of the oldest presentations that we've done a couple of months ago. Anybody else, anything like to share about Ramanujacharya? Or any questions or any comments? Hare Krishna, Uddhav. Madhusudan Babu, anything you'd like to share? Or Surrender?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I don't have much to offer today.
That's okay.
In the sense that you covered about Ramanujacharya, but I know that I've listened to quite a few kathas, and they come from that Ramanujacharya. You got that tilak on that slide, I noticed.
That's right.
And then I've seen that sort of tilak from this particular some guru or somebody anyway. And he tells wonderful pastimes about different devotees that have come into so many different this parampara, so in Rajasthan, and so I noticed that tilak, and I thought, oh, that's definitely then or bona fide in the sense that they're from Ramanujacharya sampradaya, so yeah. But is it a lot different from, we have a part of that, or from with Ramanujacharya?
Not so much, because their worship is mainly in the mood of awe and reverence, Vishnu or Lord Ramachandra, and Gauranga and Mahaprabhu, he favored the worship of Krishna, and especially the conjugal aspect of it. So in that sense, it's a little different. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took a couple of the teachings from Ramanujacharya and imbibed it into his teachings. So generally, I think more we associated with Nimbakacharya and Madhavacharya more than Ramanujacharya,
Yeah, but it's quite a bona fide sort of sampradaya, and they're very, very very strict and all that, I know.
Very
but
strict.
it's very strict and great following, but still wonderful, but still they're Vaishnav, so as long as they're in one of the four sampradayas, Shri and four Kumaras and Rudra, and it's fortunate to be linked with one of the sampradaya, but we're very fortunate because it's not only, I heard the comment recently that, we are part of the, I think it was Jai Pitaka Maharaj, I was listening to his lecture, and he said we are part of the Brahma, Madhava, Gaudiya, ISKCON Sampradaya, because you included Prabhupada is like ISKCON Sampradaya. And thank you. Thank you, Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you so much. Anything, Surinder, you'd like to share anything?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhu, Nitai Gaura Haribo. Yeah, I don't have any information about Ramanujacharya, but I can recite some verses from Yamuna Acharya.
Yeah, good, good.
So it's like that. Sajha Seva Sankalpa Bhavantam Evanucharan Nirantaraha Prashanta Nishesha Mano Rathantaraha Tadaham Aikantika Nitya Kinkara Praharasisyami Sanata Jivitam. This verse is spoken by Sri Ramanujacharya, an earnest aspiration to achieve perfection in devotional service. When will I bloom in a life of servitude as your eternal devotee, my heart pacified due to all other desires being consumed by engagement in your uninterrupted service? This is one, and there is another one. It goes like that. Prapanasya prapatti samanya kripayam api nija yogyata pratiti nanu prayatna sakre devanatha tabaham asmiti chaya cha manah tavanukampya smarata pratigyam Madeka Varjam Kim Idam Bratante. Although the Lord is naturally gracious upon the surrendered soul, the surrendered soul considers himself unfit to receive that grace. O Lord, one who keeps your pledge in mind and wholly surrenders unto you, declaring, I am yours alone, is a fit recipient for your grace.
Mhm.
Is it only I who am not included in your promise? Statement by Sri Ramanujacharya. Nitai Gaur Haribol. Dandavat Prabhu.
You.
Thank
That's very nice. Thank you for sharing that.
you.
Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, so let's go to the Nishinga Kavach.